Start. Tonight is the last lecture on the series that we began several months ago on the 13 principles of our faith. As I began to explain then, that principles are very important because we cannot compromise them. You know, there is room for compromise in life, especially if you're married. There's a lot of compromise, right? But when it comes to our emunah, to our faith, you cannot compromise. Otherwise, you eventually will just disappear. In other words, as an individual with an important mission, which every Jew has, you cannot compromise. But especially when it comes to fundamentals, for which, as you know, you may have heard the 3 cardinal sins. One has to be prepared to give his life even, if needed, if necessary. In other words, you can't compromise, otherwise you cease to exist as what you were intended to exist for. So principles are very important. They're fundamentals. In time of despair, they give us hope. They remind us. They're intended to maintain our focus properly. What are we here for? What are we doing? What is our mission? And especially since the Jewish people are to be a light unto the nations, we have tremendous responsibilities. So if we deviate from the principles, if we show any weaknesses, then we definitely do not accomplish our mission. So not only do we lose out as individuals, but the world loses out. And unfortunately, the world has lost out in the past 5,771 years because of this. The people did not stick to their principles. Just like politicians, right? They promise many things and they don't fulfill. They don't have principles which they stand by. So the 13 principles that were put together by Rambam are not just his principles. There are other authors who put together principles. They're pretty much indicative of the main concepts that Jews believe in. They're not the 613 commandments, but they are beliefs. And when we say beliefs, we mean something that is supposed to stay with us from the day we're born, or from the time that we become knowledgeable and we have a self-awareness of who we are, whether it's at 5, 6 years old or bar mitzvah, till the day we die. It's something that we continuously need to be aware of. And the last principle is about Tchiyat HaMetim, that we believe that there will be Tchiyat HaMetim, that there will be a time, there will come a day when there will be a resurrection of the dead. Those who have died, who for some people, they're gone. Judaism says no, they're not completely gone. First of all, Jews believe in Hasharat HaNefesh, which means that the soul, the spirit, continues to survive in a different realm. The body is of earth. The body decomposes, as everybody could see. If you were to open up most graves, I say most graves because some righteous, their bodies are intact. Some of the righteous, their bodies are intact. It's true. But for the most part, either you will find bones or you will find almost nothing, because even after a while, bones decompose as well. It takes longer, depending on the soil, depending on the weather, depending on the elements. So this is an incredible emunah. This is a faith in the belief that something so incredible is going to happen one day. It's going to happen soon, as Hashem. That those who we thought were gone, even though we believe that their spirit is around, that they will come back into a physical body. We will see our great-grandparents or those who were very dear to us come back. This is an incredible emunah. But nevertheless, it's an important part of our faith. Very important part of our faith, just like the belief in God. We believe in God, He is one, that He's involved in our affairs. He did not just create the world, but He's completely aware of our actions, that He rewards those who act properly. He will punish those who did not follow His instructions. These are all principles that we've spoken about, that we should pray to Him, that there is a way that God communicates to man, and one of those ways is prophecy. And we believe in the prophecy of Moshe. We believe that the Torah that he gave us is divine. It was not put up together by a committee of human beings. It cannot be altered. There would only be one Torah. These are some of the principles we discussed. And here comes along one that is maybe difficult for some people because they've never seen anything like it. They've never experienced it. As opposed to faith in God. Faith in God somewhat makes sense. Unless you're a diehard scientist, that you don't want to, you've made up your mind that this is unscientific to believe in a God. That's what some scientists say. They basically do not think that that's possible because it's unscientific and it cannot be proven. Yeah, but why don't you have an open mind? Because this, after all, is the best explanation for creation, much better statistically than the Big Bang. Anyway, die-hard scientists who don't want to believe in a God have made up their mind and therefore believe in all kinds of theories that are very unscientific. But nevertheless, they'd rather believe in that than believe in a God. So Tchiyat HaMetim is definitely even less scientific, if we can say so. Not only it's hard to prove, even though, by the way, there are some people who have frozen their bodies. They have given instructions for their bodies to be frozen indefinitely. They pay money. It costs a lot of money in a cooler because they believe that science one day may bring them back to life. Well, this is not exactly the Tchiyat HaMetim that we're going to talk about, but at least they have some, hope that this body will come back to life one day. So they have their bodies frozen instead of cremated or buried in the ground. This emunah, because of its importance, after all, when somebody dies, people feel bad, especially if he's a good man, if we were close to him. And there's a mitzvah to comfort the mourners. These are difficult times, especially if he died young or tragically. So we need something to elevate our spirits, something to give us hope. And not only is that the mitzvah of the ones who are going to mourn, not only is that the mitzvah of those who are going to comfort the mourners, it is also something that the rabbis pointed out in the Siddur, in the prayer book that we have every day. We say certain parts of our prayer consist of this emunah of Tchiyat HaMetim, this faith in that the dead will once again rise. And we have it pretty much emphasized in the Amidah, in Tfilat HaShmoneser, which I'm going to quote to you. In the very, very beginning, as you know, Tfilat Amidah is divided into three parts. We have the first portion that gives praise to the Almighty. We're reminded of His involvement, whether it's in the weather, in the bringing of the rain. We give praise to the Almighty. And then we have our personal needs and requests in the middle of this prayer. And in the last part of this prayer that we say 3 times a day, we have the giving of the thanks, the Shevach and the Odaya. We thank you for everything that you have given us, our life, our health, and our livelihoods. So in the very beginning, in giving praise, the portion that gives praise to God, we say that He can be trusted, that He will bring back the dead. Trusted because these are things that we have never seen. We have never witnessed it exactly. But we trust Him. Why do we trust Him? Because He has proven Himself many times that He can do wonderful things. He took us out of Egypt, many, many miracles. And these miracles are part of our tradition, handed down from father to son. So we know for a fact that He has proven Himself, that He exists, that He has done things for us, He has protected us, He has been with us. Otherwise, how do you explain this incredible miracle, the survival of the Jewish people over so many years, in such a long diaspora, so much persecution, right? So many troubles, afflictions. It must be that there's a great shepherd, and His name is God, who's watching over us from all the wolves that have always tried to attack. So in this praise, we say we trust Hashem that one of the things that He will do in the future that He hasn't done yet exactly, even though I will give you examples of Tchiyat HaMetim that have occurred, but the big Tchiyat HaMetim, where all the dead, for the most part, will rise, will come very soon when Mashiach comes. This idea of Tchiyat HaMetim, this concept, this event will occur during the Messianic times, or as it is called in Hebrew, B'acharit HaYamin, in the end of days. This is one of those things that is left towards the very, very end. There are things that happen all the time. But this is one of the last events, one of the most major events, but it's towards the end. And because of the importance of this emunah, it is in our prayer book. We say it every day. We say it several times a day. And what do we exactly say? We say that "Ata gibor leolam Hashem mechayeh metim, ata rav leoshia." That is how it begins. The first mention of Tchiyat HaMetim, the first praise that relates to this concept of Tchiyat HaMetim, we say that Hashem is strong. He's eternally strong. Why eternally? Because man can be strong, but his strength weakens with age. It diminishes with time. Whereas Hashem's strength is forever, it's eternal. And that strength includes an incredible feat that no human being can accomplish, and that is Mechayeh Metim. That is incredible. That is his strength. That is where we will see his Gvura. This portion of the prayer speaks about the strength of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the way we see it in the form of rain. How do we see the strength of Hashem in rain? So rabbis tell us that every drop has an address. No two drops mix. Every drop goes where it's intended to go. Hashem decides when there will be rain, how much rain there will be, too much rain, no rain whatsoever. Even though we've gotten used to from classes in science and from what we've heard and read that there are laws of nature, and it's true. Hashem put together laws of nature of how rain with wind, they all combine in some way or fashion to produce life in this world. So there are rules, there are laws of nature that bring this about, but who's in charge of all of this? Who makes it happen? There's still one address. The source of all of this is Hashem. We can't assume that this is just plain nature, because even nature is an act of God. So in talking about Gvurot Geshamim, we talk about the strength of the rains, of how rain is so powerful and how it in itself demonstrates the involvement of Hashem in this world. We say that there's another form of rain or another form of Gvura that is called Mechayeh Metim, bringing back those who are dead. Mechayeh meaning bringing back to life. And this is similar to rain, because what does rain do? It gives life to the world. It produces all the fruit, everything that we get our nourishment from. So in the same way that rain brings life, so will Hashem bring back the life to those who are now dead. This is of course eternal. Once Hashem brings back those who are dead, it will be for eternity. And I'll elaborate a little bit more about it when we speak towards the end about Olam Haba. What does eternity really mean? But this is something that does not exist. This is something supernatural almost. Mechayeh Metim is not something that you see every day. And in some ways, this is like many other things that are supernatural. In other words, Hashem does many supernatural things. All miracles are supernatural. But that is why there's an emphasis here on Gevurah, on tremendous strength. We're not talking about physical strength. We're talking about something that is so incredible. That is why it's called powerful. Gevurah, strong, because it's not davar tiv'i. It's completely not natural. Then it says, afterwards, it talks about Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayem Metim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Nofrim Rofeh Cholim, Matir Asurim, Umekayem Mutol Shnei Afar. It further discusses the many things that Hashem does, that we praise Him for it, whether it's the healing of the sick, releasing the prisoners. And it says Mekayem Mutol Shnei Afar, that He will fulfill His promise to those who are now asleep. Melech Memit Umechayem Matzmiach Yeshua. Again, an emphasis on the words Memit Umechayeh, that He puts to death and He brings them back alive. This king is different than a mortal king. A mortal king, only all he knows to do is to be Memit. He can kill you. He's Memit. But this God, who's king over all kings, He's Memit Umechayeh. He can kill, He puts to death, but He's also Mechayeh. He brings you back alive. Umatzmiach Yeshua. And ultimately, in the end, this will be tremendous salvation. This will be tremendous salvation, because in the same way that you put a seed in the ground and it rots and then it produces a beautiful tree or a beautiful plant, which is life once again that is restored to the seed that has died and that has become rotten. In the same way, Matzmiach Yeshua, the ultimate salvation, is when those who have gone back to the ground come back alive too. They get back their life in the same way a plant and a tree gets back its life from a seed. Matzmiach Yeshua, that is the ultimate salvation. So when we comfort those who are mourning over somebody who had passed away, we say, the Ashkenazim at least say, "Hamakom yinachem otchem betoch shar avalei Tzion Yerushalayim." May the Almighty comfort you amongst all those who are mourning for Yerushalayim. What does that have to do with Yerushalayim, and what does that have to do with may God comfort you? We cannot bring back the dead. We can, no matter how much we empathize with those who are feeling their loss, tremendous loss, we can be there for them. We can share in their pain, and that is soothing. Just to be there, to hold their hands, to talk to them, it definitely takes away a little bit of the pain. Traditionally, however, the pain does dissipate after a year, the rabbis tell us. Thank God. Hashem put it into nature that this kind of pain should go away. Imagine if we would have to live with this pain for the rest of our life. We would go crazy. We wouldn't be able to function normally. So a great deal of this pain goes away naturally. But nevertheless, it's important. It's a mitzvah to comfort those who are in mourning, to be there for them. But what we cannot do is bring back the dead. So what kind of a comfort is it? It's a very partial comfort. So therefore, when we're about to leave, we say, you know who will comfort you? The ultimate comfort will be from God, because He can bring you back the guy who died. He can bring you back your dad. He can bring you back your spouse, your child, your grandparent, your friend. He's the ultimate source of comfort, therefore. And that will happen when He comforts those who are mourning over Yerushalayim, when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, when they see that what was destroyed and lost is not really lost. It can be rebuilt, and it will be rebuilt. All of these ideas are being expressed in the Amidah. All of these ideas are being expressed in this important prayer that strengthens our emunah in God in a very important area of belief. In an area that we may be distressed, we may feel very pained. Imagine somebody who just lost someone tragically. Imagine those who went through the Holocaust and had so many doubts and questions. How could this be? Where is this merciful God? How could He allow something like this to happen? They obviously cannot be judged. We were not allowed to judge anybody who went through such a tragedy. We don't know how we would react if we were in their shoes. But obviously these people, if their faith is not strong and it was just shattered, they're going to be in bad shape. They may just drop everything. Unless we remind them that, wait a minute, this individual who you're crying is not gone. Yeah, what do you mean he's not gone? I just saw him disappear in the crematorium. He's ashes. I saw the ashes. And some people take those ashes and they put it in the living room, by the way. In a jar. You're supposed to bury it. According to Judaism, the body has to return to the ground, if possible. If at all possible. And there are various explanations for that. There are various reasons of why this needs to happen. That's the ideal way for the individual, for the soul to receive a tikkun. That's part of the tikkun. Tikkun meaning a certain part of judgment that the individual needs to go through, the physical body needs to go through. So we don't cremate, and we don't bury in a wall, we bury in the ground. And that is partially, that has also to do with our belief in Tchiyat HaMetim. Partially, that's one of the reasons that, this body is not gone, it will come back, it will have life again. That same spirit that dwelled in it for 70 or 80 years will once again come in. Just we're not used to it. Even though you can take a seed, put it into the ground. All it is a seed, and it will rot, by the way. The seed will rot, and after it rots, a brand new tree will come out with many, many fruits on it, if it's a fruit tree. That we're used to seeing, but it's the same idea. It's the exact same concept. Just we're not used to it. So in the tefillah, we talk about the resemblance of Tchiyat HaMetim to Geshamim. They're close to each other. Afterwards we say Mashiv Aruach Morida Geshem. In other words, in the same way rain brings life, in the same way Hashem will bring back the life to those individuals who have been here before. Then the other portion of the prayer is Bechalkel Chaim Bechesed Bechayim Metim Berachamim Rabbim. That's also very interesting, another point. Also talking about life, Not only does Hashem give us life, not only does He support life, not only does He give us our parnasah, our livelihood, our kalkala, but He is also mechayem metim. He also will bring back that life. Everything about life coming from Hashem. He says that mechalkel chaim bechesed. We say the words bechesed meaning with kindness. Now, why the emphasis of chesed? For those of you who learned a little bit Kabbalah, chesed has to do with being kind even to those who don't deserve it. Hashem has various attributes or manifestations of His involvement with humanity. And there can be an eye for an eye, there can be such a midah keneged midah, but there's also chesed with those who are not deserving. They're wicked, they're evil, they're not doing anything right. But somehow, for some reason that we're not always aware of, He's generous or He's kind to them. He shows or demonstrates chesed. Chesed is a form of kindness even with those who don't deserve it. But then you have rachamim. Mechayem etim b'rachamim rabim. He brings back, or He will bring back the life. It says mechayem even in the present. Why in the present? Mechayem right now, metim b'rachamim rabim. Yes, it could even be in the present. Those who were just about pronounced dead by the doctors, and they came back to life. There have been people who have died and have come back. So mechayem etim even in the present. It's in the present tense. But we're really talking about also in the future, of course, that there will be a time that they will come back. Those who have completely died, completely gone, completely been forgotten about. But that is berachamim rabim. Why is that with rachamim rabim? Why is that with so much compassion? That's what rachamim is. The Chafetz Chaim, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, points to a pasuk where the Navi, the prophet, describes Rega katon azavtich u'berachamim gedolim akabtzech. I have left you, abandoned you, not really abandoned you, but left you for a moment. Imagine 1943 years so far from the Churban Beit Sheni, from the destruction. It's called a Rega katon. That's just one moment in the eyes of Hashem. Rega katon azavtich, I left you. Look what has happened to you when I have left you. For 1940, look what has happened to you. Look how you look. Look where you are. You're so dispersed. There's so much, unfortunately, intermarriage and assimilation. Look what has happened to you when I left you for one moment. So 1940 years is a moment. So what's berachamim gedolim akabetzech? When I gather you, when I begin the gathering process, it will be with tremendous compassion. So there we see the term rachamim gedolim too, which is similar to here, berachamim rabim, with compassion, with tremendous compassion, meaning that it will be eternal, it will be forever. This is one moment, rega katon. Can you imagine what will be berachamim rabim? If this is one moment, 1943 years, what will be rachamim gedolim? Right? If this is just one little moment, could you imagine? So rachamim rabim there, in the context of it, is eternity, tremendous, forever. I will be with you, I will come back to you, and I will be with you forever. And that is called Rachamim Rabim, because the person has died already. The person is already gone, supposedly. So for Hashem to bring him back, it shows how much He cares for him, how much He wants him, how much this, not a God of hate, this is a God of love, of compassion. That everything He does is good and compassion. He doesn't have to do this. They're all connected. He doesn't even have to give us life, but He brought you into this world. He gave you life. That's also an act of chesed, of rachamim. Life in itself is a gift. Unfortunately, some people want to throw it away, whether it's their own life or the life of the fetus that they abort. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. So this is all in the same context. The present life that we have is a gift. It's an act of chesed, it's an act of compassion and kindness, and so is mechayem etim b'rachamim rabim, something that will be for eternity, something that Hashem wants to give us that seems impossible, nevertheless He wants to give it back to us. How life and how precious life is. That's pretty much the meaning of what we say. We sometimes don't pay attention to these beautiful words that were composed by Anshe Knesset Agdolah B'Ruach HaKodesh. When they composed these prayers, obviously they were divinely inspired. They just didn't make up a story. Their prayers, the text that they put together, is based on fundamental beliefs to inspire us, to encourage us, that we do not forget about these things, whether it's the present life we have, how special it is, and whether it's in the life to come, how special that will be too. We talk about Mechayeh Metim in the future, but we're really talking about that on a daily basis because the rabbis tell us that the sleep is 1/60th of death. When you sleep, especially if you have a deep sleep, you wake up in the morning, you feel freshened. So the rabbis explain this whole idea of sleep is also a tremendous gift for the body to re-energize itself, to get back its strength. In other words, we're so tired and we feel better. Hopefully, if you had enough sleep, you do feel better, right? And when we wake up, it is a form of Tchiyat HaMetim, because that sleep was 1/60th of death. And that is why, in the morning, for those of you who say the blessings in the morning, we have a special prayer that talks about what just happened. It's called Elokai Neshama. We say, Hashem, Neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. That soul that you have given me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you blew it into my nostrils, you preserve it, and at some point you will take it from me, but you will also give it back to me in the future. So long as the Neshama is bekirbi, so long as the Neshama, the soul, the spirit is within me, I thank you. And I acknowledged that you are the master of all the souls, and we finish the blessing with Machzir Neshamot Lefigarim Matim, that you bring back the souls to those who are pretty much like dead cadavers. Either it means when we wake up in the morning from a mini death, or that you are the God that will bring back life into those who have been completely dead for a long time. Another small prayer talking about Tchiyat HaMetim. But the one that's probably the most famous one is the first few words that we utter when we wake up in the morning. Anybody remember what that is? The Modeh Ani. The giving thanks before we do anything, even before we wash our hands, which is very important. We say the Modeh Ani, we give thanks. We don't take life for granted. There are some people that don't wake up in the morning. So we don't take it for granted. We're thankful for another day. And we realize that every day has meaning. We have something to accomplish today that we could not have done yesterday, because it's a brand new day. It's a new life. So Modeh Ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayem, to you the king who is around forever, shechezarta binishmati b'chemla, that you have given me back my neshama with chemla, compassion. But what's interesting is the ending of this. Not only am I thankful for it, but the fact that you've given back to me this neshama, rabba emunatecha. My emunah in you is very, very much strengthened, that there will also be a time that you will give me back my neshama in Tchiyat HaMetim. So rabba emunatecha is directly linked to the emunah of Tchiyat HaMetim. You know, in the same way, in the same fashion that you've given me back my neshama this morning, my emunah is now strengthened that you will do so as well in Tchiyat HaMetim. And that is why we continue on to say, V'ne'eman ata lehayot metim, that you can be trusted, that will happen, that you will bring back those who have passed away. So what do we see so far from this? There's several ideas being expressed over here. It's not just our faith in the HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing something so incredible. It's also that there's no reason to fear death. There's the emunah in Nasharat HaNefesh, that the soul continues to exist. There's the emunah in Tchiyat HaMetim, but there's also the removal of fear. Don't despair. But he was just killed. Yes, it's sad. Why is it sad? It's sad that perhaps he did not have the opportunity to get married and have children and have a family of his own. It's sad that he left so early. But you know what? He's not gone completely. He will come back. What has gone is the suit that he was wearing. That's the physical body. I'm not telling, don't say this to somebody who's mourning right now, because you have to be very careful. Some people say silly things. Oh, what did he die of? You know, you don't want to do that. If you don't know what to say, just don't say anything. It's very sensitive. At a time you're going to comfort somebody who's mourning, especially if it was tragic, you know, you don't want to ask silly questions. You don't want to get into a conversation that will not really be helpful. It's better to just keep quiet if you don't know what to say. You know, obviously, if you're prepared, then you can talk about things like, you know, his achievements, what he has accomplished, what he leaves behind. You know, that's normal things to talk about. You know, let's focus on the good, on what he has done, what he has accomplished. He has come here for a purpose after all, and he has fulfilled his mission, hopefully, you know, depending on the circumstances. But you have to be extremely careful. This is not a time to just talk. It's better not to say anything. Just to be there is good enough. The only thing we say that is easy to remember are the words of comfort at the end that make Hashem comfort you, because we don't know how to. We don't know how to do a good job always. So it's a mitzvah to be there, but be careful what you say. So far we see that this is not so bad after all. Dying, you know, after all, it's only something temporary. You go from one place to another place. You go from one world to another world. That is the emunah that we have, what death represents. But we've taken it one step further. We're saying not only is the spirit still around somewhere, at some point, it's going to come back. Why does the person have to die to begin with? The person has to die to begin with because of something called Chet Adam Harishon. Because of the first sin. That is when the Torah says Hashem made a decision in order for man to be able to rectify his ways completely. This physical body which has caused him to sin has to fall apart, has to disintegrate. Because that is what brings desire, that is what brings a person's temptations. We're half animal. So even though the neshama is pure, because it is clothed in a physical body, it is prone to sin. It is prone to do things that are contrary or opposed to Hashem's wills, Hashem's will and wishes. So this body that has sinned, this body that has had some involvement, or is the cause of the sin, the only way for it to be rectified is to go through the death process. That's not its only rectification. There is something else that happens beyond the grave, in Olam HaNeshamot, in the world of souls. There's something called Gan Eden, there's something called Gehenom, which we're not going to talk about right now. But part of the rectification process is Mita, Mavet, death. There's no way for man to escape death, because that is the only way the body can be rectified for anything that he may have done wrong. The vessel has to be broken. Imagine taking a clay, if you've ever made clay, and it didn't come out right. Could you start all over again? You have to take it back to the furnace to reshape it. And that's what Hashem does. He will reshape the body. He will take it back to the furnace and bring back a new body, a body that is completely mitukan. So in the same way that death is not the end, in other words, it's not the worst case scenario, we should also remember that the Churban Habayit, the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, is not the end. Because in the same way that the body is destroyed, the body falls apart, but it's for its own benefit and good, for it to eventually be rectified and come back in a new body. In the same way, our home, the Bet HaMikdash, our temple that was destroyed, it was destroyed for a new body to come out, for a new home to be built. Imagine demolishing the old home that is full of termites, right? It's all falling apart, it's all crumbling. You want to bring it down. So Hashem says, I destroyed it. It's sad. It is sad. It's still sad. We cry over it. It shouldn't have happened. It happened because of our sins. We are at fault. We are responsible for it. But, in other words, don't overdo it. Even though we cry, and we should cry, and we should beg Hashem to restore it, let's not forget that in the end it's good. That is destroyed for something better and something newer to be built. We cannot fix the old one. We cannot fix it. It has to be destroyed. B'ezrat Hashem, a new one will come out. Before we begin to discuss more in depth what Tchiyat HaMetim is really all about, why it's necessary, I just want to give you, for those of you who are interested, some sources. As far as sources, this is not very clearly written in the Torah. The Torah does not talk about certain things, certain ideas, because the Torah, with the commandments, is much more geared for this world. It doesn't talk about reward and punishment in the future world. The Hashem wants us to fulfill the mitzvah because He said so. Not because they make sense to us, not because we're going to be rewarded for it, because He said so. Do you believe in Him? This is what He believes is the best roadmap for you. Live your life according to these standards. You trust in Him, you believe in Him, do so, and you will only gain from it. Had the Jewish nation listened and fulfilled everything, then of course our destiny would have been very, very different. We did not always succeed. We did not always do as good as a job as we could have done. So we were reminded from time to time by Hashem. So everything that concerns Olam Hazeh, this world, is pretty much clearly mentioned in the Torah. Tchiyat HaMetim, similar to Gilgul Neshamot, reincarnation, similar to Sachar ve'Onesh, reward and punishment, is something that is only mentioned beremez. It is insinuated. It is insinuated. It is in the Torah, and that's what I'm going to review with you. It is in the Tanakh. It's very much in the Torah Shebal Peh, in the Gemara, and in the Zohar. Of course, the Kabbalah has a lot of things that are not mentioned clearly in the Torah, because the Kabbalah speaks about that which is mystical, including reincarnation, which we spoke about last week. In other words, had we not had the Zohar or the books in Kabbalah, we would maybe have not been aware that there's something called reincarnation. A lot of rabbis were opposed to it when it was first revealed in the open. Reincarnation? You mean the body is recycled? Whoever heard of something like that? You won't find that in the Gemara. You won't find that in the Torah. Hinduism, they believe in these kind of things, but what did they take it from us? Everybody took a lot of these concepts really from us. It was just forgotten over time where it all started from. Tchiyat HaMetim, by the way, is something that is believed also by Christians to some extent. But where do they take it from? From us. I mean, this is a new religion that just started. And who started a new religion called Christianity? Jews. They start everything. They start communism too. Everything is started by Jews. So they started it. They started this new religion. I don't know what they had in mind in the beginning, but basically they were responsible for it. So a lot of the concepts and part of our beliefs are in the Christian Bible. It's not the Jewish Bible, but it's a Christian Bible. Well, the way I look at it is it's better than nothing. The people who were in the Roman Empire, who were not the first Christians, but the next generation of Christians, they were pagan before. Pagan. Greek gods and Roman gods and all kinds of gods. Today at least they have a belief in some form of monotheism, and part of that is a lot of what they call Judeo-Christian beliefs. They believe supposedly in the Ten Commandments. I don't know if they fulfill it, but they believe in it. When you ask them, well, wait a minute, you really believe in the Ten Commandments? One of the commandments is to observe the Sabbath. Oh no, except for that one. So there are exceptions, except for this one, except for that one, But the reality is still the same. The reality is that the Christian faith did borrow extensively from Judaism, and so did Islam, which is really all planned from above. Don't think it's a coincidence. Don't think it just happened because people decided one day to make a new religion. This is all major. This is major. This is not the decision of one man, and therefore this is not in the realm of free will. These are global events, and global events are managed from above. So the formation of Christianity and Islam, believe it or not, even though it's not Judaism, is managed from above. It is a way of paving the world to the belief in one God and not in many gods. It is the way to prepare the world for Mashiach. So in the past 2,000 years, we've had two main religions that today are the majority of the world in the belief. right? If you combine Catholics, all forms of denominations of Christianity, and Islam, all forms of Islam, and Judaism, you really have a great amount of people who believe in some similar ideas, even though they practice differently, they behave differently, right? They speak different languages maybe, but nevertheless there is some commonality between them, and this is all for an ultimate purpose, and that is to bring about an awareness of God, awareness in God. So therefore a lot of them do have a belief in Tchiyat HaMetim as well. Did you want to ask something?
Why is it Hashem felt the need to do it through those religions instead of through spreading the Noahide code?
No, the Noahide code or the Noahide laws, the 7 commandments, is always relevant. And we are actually told to disseminate it too, to teach non-Jews what their obligations are, the very basics of the 7. That has nothing to do with the religion. That you can still be a Christian, you can still be a Muslim, and believe in the 7 Noahide. And actually, if you approach a Muslim who is religious, that is, he will agree with pretty much all of them. Point it out to him.
Except for maybe don't kill.
No, that too. Everybody accepts. That's common sense. Everybody accepts it. But I told you before that there are exceptions. So when you say don't kill, well, what about if he's coming to kill you? What if he's, So there are exceptions to that commandment too. If your life is in danger, it's different. So most of humanity who uses common sense, if they use their common sense, they can behave themselves. They can be righteous people, righteous Gentiles, and they will also have a share to the world to come. They will rise too. See, that's where Judaism is very different than just about every other religion. We believe that you're welcome too, that you have a share to the world to come if you behave yourself. Just because you don't believe in what I believe does not make you anything less than me. You have a different mission, and you're going to be just as much welcome to this world, and just as much loved by the Almighty who created you in the image of God. Whereas other religions say, if you don't believe in what I believe, then you're out, you're going to burn, where. No, we don't believe in that. We don't kick anybody out, we don't curse anybody for not believing what we believe. We feel bad for people who go against the will of God. We're supposed to feel bad. There are people, of course, who have a grudge, who are angry, upset, will take revenge. I'm not talking about those individuals who have a weakness. But if you use common sense, that's all you're being asked to do. Every human being, as Thomas Jefferson said very truly, we're all created equal. Even though there was slavery at the time, and I don't understand exactly what he meant by that. But I think what he meant was all created with a mission. We're all special. We're all unique. There's no one better than another. We're all Hashem's children in a sense, Hashem's creations, I should say. Even though the Jewish nation was chosen, but it was chosen for a certain task, for a certain responsibility and mission. It doesn't make us better necessarily, especially if you don't behave yourself and you don't do what you're expected to. So just using common sense, any human being who uses common sense will, by virtue of his soul, receive a certain awareness of what he needs to do and what he should not do, even without any commandments. So not to kill is a common sense way of living one's life that is expressed by one's soul. In other words, the soul, which is divine, teaches us common sense, what is right from what is wrong. So when somebody heads upstairs and God asks him, why did you behave like that? Well, I didn't know any better. You didn't know any better? Yes, you did. I gave you brains. You know what brains is? It's not just a gray jelly in your skull. Brains is a mechanism through which the soul communicates with the physical body. You have nerves to move your hands. You have brains that can memorize things, can learn certain things, and be aware of certain things. So don't excuse yourself. As they say here in this country, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So living a life oblivious to these common sense things is no excuse. This is common sense. So if you use common sense, you will arrive at many, many ideals that Judaism very much emphasizes. Yes.
Just the one idea, the major defect with Islam and Christianity over Ben Noach, of course, is the fact they don't recognize the truth of the Jewish people of Torah Moshe. The Rambam says, in other words, you know,
Well, remember, human beings are biased. You're right. There are people, not all Muslims, and not all Christians, but there are people, unfortunately too many, who are biased, who don't want to use common sense, who don't want to accept others, and that's the problem. But you will find some very, very decent Muslims and Christians who will tell you, well, wait a minute, what the Bible says makes sense to me. Yes, you are who you are, I am who I am, they are who they are, and we can all get along. There are unfortunately a few of those people like that, but they do exist. If the majority of the world would believe all that, what I just said, Mashiach would have been here already. If everybody used common sense. But they are.
But Islam and Christianity believe in the wrong God. That's the
No, Muslims believe in the same God as Jews do. They do. That's why that's why you are allowed to pray in a mosque. You're not allowed to pray in a church, but you are allowed to pray in a mosque. Me'arat HaMachpelah is a mosque. Kever Shmuel HaNavi is a mosque. There are many places where Jews and Arabs pray together, or not exactly at the same time, the exact same location. There's no prohibition whatsoever. They believe in the same God.
They say they do, but by virtue of going against...
No. They believe in the exact same God. However, they have different belief system, but the God is the same.
No, but that's for instance, they want to take away the land of Israel, the Jewish people. By virtue of that fact, they already are outside the...
Yeah, but not all of them do. Remember, not all of them do. What you're talking about is unfortunately a majority, maybe, of certain groups of people who, for political reasons, also are being swayed in a certain way.
Right.
If you took away politics, right, and you took away hatred.
Yeah, but there's a basic untruth.
No. If you took away politics and you took away hatred, and you went back 100 years when the circumstances were different, and you sat down with an intelligent Muslim, he would basically say, listen, you guys are punished, that's why you were exiled. But one day you may come back because your Bible says so. Okay? So that's what Christianity is basically saying today too. Some of them are, not all. Hey, the Jewish people are going back to the land. What does that mean? The prophecies are coming. They're materializing.
So of course at the end you're going to be punished for not accepting Yoshki, so there's a fundamental...
Not all of them. You're right. A great deal.
You no longer are believing in the true absolute.
Right.
That's
what I said before. A great deal of non-Jews are following dogma. It's much more dogma than common sense. You know what dogma means? In other words, what they were preached. This is what the preacher said. This is what the priest said. This is what the books say. But it's not exactly so. If you take apart the Christian Bible, if you really read it, and I don't necessarily recommend that you do that, but or you read the Quran, which you don't have to do either, you will see that it doesn't say what they say. It doesn't say so. On the contrary, the main actor in the Christian Bible, who you know what I mean by that, right? He was Jewish. He was also some sort of rabbi, some sort, right? And he basically says, I'm not moving away from the Torah. This is my Torah. I believe in everything that it says. It says so in the Christian Bible, right? He did not come to change anything. And here they're asking us to change. So their beliefs are all mumbo jumbo. It's all confused. It's all mixed up. It's full of contradictions. And that is why they have Presbyterian and Baptists and Protestants and Greek Orthodox and all kinds for many, many years. Divisions, unending divisions and issues because they can't figure it out because it's not divine. And it was subject to interpretation. And human beings had their hands on it. So you know, it did.
Well, that's what I think he was asking me. Why didn't they just? Why did it have to go through this?
Well, that
not directly to Ben Noah.
No, we don't know the answers to all these kind of questions. Why did it have to go this way and not in any other way? You know, this is how it came about, and there is an explanation that I give Kabbalistically, but I want to talk about it another time, as to what Christianity really represents, how it's related to Esav. Okay? On a Kabbalistic level, there's a lot more depth to it.
Right.
But it's a whole different lecture of what it represents. Yes?
What I was
go ahead.
talking about
Yeah?
was how is it that the Christians follow the Noahide laws when one of the Noahide laws is you shall not worship idols, yet they believe in some Jew. They worship a certain
They
Jew.
don't believe that that's idolatry. Okay? For us, it is. Okay? But for them, it's not. They don't believe that that's idolatry. Yes?
Just really briefly, if you notice, both the advent of Islam and Christianity came after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed,
Right.
and after Jerusalem's Golos.
That's correct.
Several concepts. I think, Rabbi, can you mentioned a few months ago that it has to do with the light, which came in, and the light came into a physical space of Beit HaMikdash. When that broke, the light still had to come in, but it couldn't come contained into one vessel anymore. So it was split and fragmented and broken off into different, which came from the source of Judaism. Furthermore, it's like Hashem's master plan. We can't forget that Hashem is the one that basically set off Christianity in motion and Islam in motion to go out and then to come back in at the end of days, which is now,
Right.
and to play the final, which is happening around Israel.
Right.
So basically, it's part of this huge cosmic puzzle.
It's a huge cosmic plan, a plan that Hashem has in store. However, the most important thing, the bottom line, regardless of your faith and religion and background, you can always be a mensch, as in Yiddish we say. Be a decent human being, regardless. That's what's most important of all. If a human being is a mensch, he's a decent person, doesn't hurt anybody, you know, lives his life, brings kids into this world, behaves himself, follows the law, you know, law and order or wherever government he is in. He's generous with others, shares of his money with others. He's a good Gentile, regardless of his religion. He's a good man or good woman. That's what counts. You know, belief, of course, is important, especially because belief is important. Yes, belief is. Nevertheless, he's still a good person. But belief, the most important reason why belief is so essential is because it guides us in life. If I believe something, then I will hopefully know what to do in this kind of a situation. You know, what do? You know, we're stuck. Should we give back the land, not give back the land? Well, it depends if you believe or not believe. You know, do you compromise, not compromise? When do you compromise, when do you not compromise? If you have beliefs, then you have guidelines. Without a belief system, then you will just know the basics maybe. Not to steal, not to cheat, not to hurt anybody, to be kind. But that's all. And that's not always enough, especially not for the Jew. For the non-Jew, it's enough. Obviously, it is very helpful for the non-Jew to also know that there is a God. Because if there is no God, he will be tempted to do all kinds of things that are very, very off. Like a woman who's about to have an abortion. If she doesn't believe in God, she will basically say, well, it's my right to choose. It's my body. How could you argue with her if she doesn't believe in a God? If a person does not believe in a God, you're right. He may fall in a big trap of believing in his own beliefs, which is really not a belief system, but more his physical body desires that he has. He's following them. He's being guided by them instead of being guided by God. So the belief in a God is very, very important. But anyway, let's quickly go through the sources of Tchiyat HaMetim. We have in Shirat HaAzinu, Re'u Ata, Hashem says, Ani Amit V'Hayeh, Machatzti V'Ani Erpeh. That's the words in HaAzinu where Hashem says that I am the one that's responsible for everything, whether it's healing or bringing back to life. Yeshayahu says, Yichyu metecha nevlati yekumun, akitzu v'ranenu shochnei afar, talking about the praise that the dead will give when they rise. What is he talking about? He's talking about Tchiyat HaMetim. Daniel, Rabim yeshenei admat afar yakitzu, ele lechayim ola, lechaye olam, ve'ele lecharpot, lediraon olam, talking about the many that will rise that will awaken Tchiyat HaMetim. Daniel also is told by the Malach, "Ata lech leketz v'tanuach v'tamod legoracha leketz hayamin." Go to sleep, rest, and you will get up in the end of days. That means you will wake up one day. Another remez, "Vayomer Hashem Moshe in chashochev im avotecha v'kam." The word v'kam is a remez that even though you're passing away now, you will one day get up again. The pasuk that says "V'gam hakimotit beriti itam latet lahem et eretz Canaan." Who is Hashem saying, "I will give the land to"? I will give it to the forefathers, but they're gone. No, one day they will come back. All of these, the rabbis point out, are additional remazim that point to Tchiyat HaMetim. Atem hadevekim b'Hashem chayim kulchem hayom. Hayom, you're alive, and so will it be leolam haba. Just like you're alive today, you will also be alive leolam haba, for the world to come. Ani emit v'achayeh, we already said. Pirkei Avot talks about yeladim lamut v'hametim lechyot. Those who have just been born, what's their next step after being born? They will die. Those who have died, what's their next step? To come back alive. So we see that this is all in stages, and the rabbis discuss it. These things already happened, by the way. Whoever reads through Tanakh will find an incident with Eliyahu Navi, Elisha, where they actually brought back somebody who had passed away. Yechezkel actually is one of the most fascinating ones. If you ever have a chance to read Yechezkel chapter 37, that's called Nevuat Atzamot HaYeveshot, the dry bones, where he goes to a valley of bones, of Jews who have died after the Jews left Mitzrayim, it was in that period of time. Valley full of bones, and he gives prophecy to them, and all of a sudden all the bones assemble together and they come back to life. So that is the one real first incident of mass Tchiyat HaMetim that occurred with many people who came back, got married again, and had children. Chapter 37, people are not aware of it, but it has occurred already. And then there's all kinds of stories in the Talmud and the Gemara about individuals who were killed by accident, and then the rabbi brought him back. One of them was in Purim. Rabbi got drunk and he killed his friend. So after he realized that somehow he knew how to bring him back alive. There are quite a few incidents of people having died, having gone upstairs and actually brought back some regards, from upstairs. They have what's called a clinical death or near-death experience, a partial death, where they may have partially died and then they came back alive. Okay, so all of this was an introduction. No, it was, just to give you a little bit of an idea, an overview about what Tchiyat HaMetim. But now we're going to go just a few more minutes into the idea or the essence of what Tchiyat HaMetim really represents. Rabbis tell us that Tchiyat HaMetim really should make sense to us, not only with the mashal, the example that I gave you of a seed, but for another reason. There's a discussion in the Gemara that one rabbi told this individual who was a disbeliever, listen, it's just so, it makes so much sense. It's Bekabel Aladat. Those who were never here, those who were never born, they were born, they were created, they did come, even though they never existed before, like all of us, right? Even though we could have been reincarnated. But imagine somebody who was never here, never was around, and Hashem gave him a life, and he has lived his life to its fullest. If he can come and live a life, the more so one who was already here, why can't he come back? Did you understand that? If somebody who was never here, for the first time he's born as a baby, grows up as an adult, if he was never here, if he can be created, if he can come into life and have an existence, the more so one who was already around once upon a time, he's been around, he was formed, he did have a life, why can't he also come back again? Just logic, common sense. In other words, it's not so crazy, the idea of Tchiyat HaMetim. If you can be born and created the first time, then the more so you can be recreated if you were around already once upon a time. However, one of my favorites that demonstrates really much more the survival of the soul, but it also shows that Tchiyat HaMetim is probably true, is a dream that you may have with somebody who left this world. coming to you, speaking to you. Now, dreams, of course, can be part of our imagination. Most of them are. Most dreams are figments of our imagination. Most dreams have nothing to do with reality. But there are some dreams, some that are true, even though we may not fully understand them. The ones that are more understood, however, and they have much more clarity, they're not such puzzling dreams, are dreams when somebody comes to you who has left this world. Now what happens is that sometimes these people don't talk. They just look at you. They smile, they look sad. Or, something which is more common, you see them as though they were alive but in some sort of interaction. I'm not talking about those kind of dreams where there's interaction, because that just may be memories of the past. But if somebody's pregnant in the family and you see your grandmother, maybe she wants her name to be given. It happens a lot. Or a man, a grandfather coming, he wants his name to be given to the child. That's, by the way, how you know if it's a boy or girl. You don't have to go to the doctor and figure it out. You know, can you take a picture? Is it a male or a female? You see it in a dream, then you know, oh, you know what? It's probably going to be a boy because I see him, I see her. It happens all the time. Now, that still may not prove it completely. You know when it does prove it? When they actually tell you, there was a story of a woman who was very much crying. Her husband passed away, and he didn't tell her anything about the inheritance and about the investments and about the monies. You know, it's always a good idea to have everything planned out, because, you know, all of a sudden they're stuck. They don't know anything. The father didn't say anything. So she went to the grave, you know, and she started crying to her husband. You know, please help me out. You know, this guy is saying that he's supposed to get this. This guy wants this. There's a tremendous mahloket. And I really don't know what to do. Please help me out. And she fell asleep, and he came to her in a dream. He says, go to this drawer. Underneath the drawer, there's a secret, compartment. That's where I put all the papers of the deeds and everything. And she went ahead and she found it exactly as he told her in a dream. If this was not true, I mean, how could she find this out in the dream? In other words, if it was not true that the spirit continues to live, how could he tell her these things? It's one thing to see a spirit, to see the dead. Okay, and have communication, you can blame your memory on it. But if he actually tells you something that you wouldn't have known on your own, it reveals to you all kinds of things. And this is just one example. We know that this is true. Now, they don't have permission to just come and speak to us all the time. You know, we hope that they're in their final resting place, and we don't want to bother them either. But sometimes they do come to us for a variety of reasons. And sometimes, by the way, they don't come to us directly, they go through somebody else. Because were we to see them, we would be very afraid. So sometimes they choose to go through someone else. Go tell my son, go tell my daughter, go tell my wife, go tell my husband, this and this and that. Why don't you go to them directly? Why did you come to me? They would be too afraid to see me. Or there's other reasons why we don't know. There's all kinds of reasons why the dead do not always communicate directly with those they need to. They go through someone else. So the appearance of someone who has passed away in a dream also demonstrates that he's still around. He's not gone. And B'ezrat Hashem, soon he will come back. Rabbis tell us that this will be one of the greatest Kiddush Hashem. When we say Yitgadal v'Yitkadash Shmei Rabbah, for those who have departed, that God's name will be sanctified. It will become great in the entire world. It has to do with Mashiach and has to do with Tchiyat HaMetim, because then the whole world will see something incredible. There will be no doubt left. This is not by chance. This is not nature. They won't be able to blame it on something that is natural. So at that point, when this happens, it will be a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. But what's the need for Tchiyat HaMetim? Why do the dead have to come back in a physical body? Rabbis tell us that even though the neshama is rewarded for all its actions in the world to come, in the spiritual world, the body also acted. The body also was physically involved. The body also worked very, very hard to go to shul, to put on tefillin, to give tzedakah with its hands and feet. The physical body is also going to be rewarded. When? In Tchiyat HaMetim. So Tchiyat HaMetim has various reasons. One is Sachar Laguf, the reward for the body. The second idea is because that is the tikkun. The ultimate tikkun of the world, the ultimate rectification of the world comes about at that period of time. In Tchiyat HaMetim, the world is rectified and goes back to the original blueprint God had for this world. A paradise where everybody will coexist. right? So at that point of rectification, the body is also rectified, because the body should not have died. Remember, we said that in the beginning, the body should not have died, but it died because of sin. And that's the only way it is rectified. But once, of course, the rectification comes to the world, and the world goes back to its original blueprint, that people can live forever, or at least till the end of the year 6000, which is Olam Hazeh. So part of Tchiyat HaMetim is reward, part of it is the rectification of the world. And by the way, when we talk about Tchiyat HaMetim, we're talking about everyone, even though they may have been burnt up, drowned, eaten by the sharks, regardless of what happened to them, when they come back in the same body they were before. And the reason they come back and they look alike is because we should be able to recognize them. Now, it could be, by the way, that when your grandfather comes back, he looks younger than you. Depending what age he passed away. If he died at 35, right? Your grandfather. It could be. So you won't recognize him, maybe, but your dad will. Especially if he has pictures. But they die. They come back exactly the way they left. So we should be able to recognize them. Even if they were lame and crippled and blind, they come back like that. But after they've come back, the tradition says that they will be healed. First, we need to recognize it. So we should not say, "Oh, this is somebody else." No, this is the same guy who drowned. It's the same guy who was killed, who was hanged, or whatever happened to him. So we will see him in the same physical body. It's a new physical body, of course. So we should be able to recognize him.
And what happens if there's Gigulei Neshamot? Which Neshamot is which group?
Great question. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have. There's so many. Even though we've talked a little bit about it before, what happens when somebody's reincarnated 10, 15 times? Which body rises? Huh?
All of them.
Huh? Imagine, in one reincarnation, he was Persian. In the second reincarnation, he was Hungarian. Yeah, which one would it be? The Persian one will rise, or the Hungarian? Anyway, they all rise. If every one of the bodies was okay, was decent, did something constructive, it will all rise. They all rise, and each one will share the neshama. Remember, we spoke about how the neshama can be shared, the soul can be shared like a candle. You take one candle, you can light many candles with the original flame. The soul is like a flame. It can be broken up in various bodies. And all these bodies who will rise will be like brothers. They will recognize, oh, you were 200 years ago, right? Remember Napoleon, by the way? what was George Washington like, Yeah, tell me all about him. Well, you don't have to ask me. He's there. He also got up.
Will they be identical personalities then?
No, they're not. They're not identical, because personality is the mazal. In one mazal you're a Taurus, in another mazal you could be a Virgo, and another mazal you could be a Scorpio, right? Different personalities and different traits, hereditary traits, and education, and language too. But we will all speak the same language, B'ezrat Hashem. So all of this, the bigger question is, what happens if you were married twice? That's a tricky question. What happens if you got divorced and you marry someone else? There's various opinions as to what happens then. I'll talk about it another time. I don't want to frighten you or scare you off a little bit, with these kinds of thoughts of what happens if you got involved more than one time. But yeah, but it is interesting. It is interesting, of course, and we don't have to worry about it, because at that time there will be no jealousy anyway, right? There would be no problems, and originally a man can have more than one wife. So as long as you have you're able to afford a credit card for each one of them, you're able to have up to four. Up to four. So Michael, you can take 4.
Thank you.
4.
Stop working on it.
Next time. All right. Tchiyat HaMetim will occur first in Eretz Israel, according to our tradition. It happens first in Israel, then everywhere else. It will occur, of course, in Chutz La'aretz too, but according to our tradition, they go through Mechilot, they go through subterranean caverns until they reach Eretz Israel. In the very beginning, the righteous will rise, then everybody else. So it's good to be buried in Israel, but only if you live there.
Or if you visited.
Or if you visit, you had a connection to it. You don't just want to live here and then go be buried there. The Zohar says that the land does not want you. But if you lived there, you were connected to it, you supported it, it's a big thing. It will last about 40 years. Not everybody gets up just like that. It occurs over time. What will happen to those who are alive? There's one tradition that says they will temporarily die and then they will come back, so they should have Tchiyat HaMetim too. There is such a tradition. Tzaddikim, however, will live forever, and those who will rise, some of them may not live forever, some of them may go back to their death. Because when they rise, we rise for the big day of judgment. And at the day of judgment, it will be decided who remains and who does not remain. So a lot of people will rise. The majority of people will rise. But will they have a share to the world to come? Not necessarily. What is the world to come? The world to come is a machloket. The Rambam says the world to come really is olam ha-neshamot. You go upstairs after you die. That's already olam haba, the world to come. Spiritual reward. Ramban, Nachmanides says the real olam haba begins in Tchiyat HaMetim. Because that's called olam ha-neshamot. It does not call olam haba. The real olam haba begins after Tchiyat HaMetim. But I think they both are right, because the real olam haba is anyway after the year 6000, when bodies will all become much more spiritual and there will be no need to eat. This is after the year 6000. So right now, when you go up to Gan Eden after you depart, that's it's a waiting place. In other words, you begin to have some of the reward. There's definitely tremendous pleasure and enjoyment in a spiritual sense upstairs, and it could be called the beginning of Olam Haba, but the real Olam Haba is really later on, after Tchiyat HaMetim, and especially after the year 6000. Just a quick mention of how the Tchiyat HaMetim actually occurs. What physically happens? The rabbis tell us that there is a bone in the body called the luz. There's a machlokes, different opinions of where the luz is. It's a very small bone that from that bone, which never rots, it's always in the grave, the whole body will be formed. Some say it's at the higher end of the neck, of the spinal cord. Some say it's at the very bottom. And some say, Kabbalistically, the Kabbalim say the bone is exactly where the kesher shel tefillin is on the back. That's where the bone is. Small little bone. This bone, the reason why it never rots is because this is the only bone that does not have any nourishment from what we eat. Except for Sudat Melaveh Malka Motzei Shabbat. That's the only meal that it receives nourishment from. So because it does not enjoy or benefit from anything physical in this world, Hamita lo niknesa aleha. So there was no death that was prescribed for it. Follow me? The whole death came about through pleasure, sin. This is a pure bone. Small bone. Pure. And therefore the whole body, the whole formation of the skeleton will be formed from the luz itself. What will happen as far as mitzvot? In Tchiyat HaMetim, most of the mitzvot are not cancelled. In the very beginning there's even sacrifices. Certain mitzvot of course still apply. What may not be so emphasized would be of course a holiday like Passover. Why? Because what's Passover? Pesach we celebrate Yetziat Mitzrayim. The prophet says that when Mashiach will come, there will be a new holiday called Yetziat America. That we will leave America. Yeah, it says so. Yeah, not Yetziat Egypt. Egypt that happened a long time ago. We will be celebrating something completely brand new that will, what's the word for it? It will surpass the celebrations of the past. So they will celebrate Yetziat Mitzrayim, celebrate Yetziat America. We're coming out of America. And the prophet in different words says that. And that's exactly what will be. So certain mitzvot may be a little bit different. Or some may be not as emphasized as others will, but there will still be mitzvot, even though at some point after Tchiyat HaMetim there's no Yetzer Hara anymore. There's no evil inclination, there's no sin, and there's no death. As the Pasuk says, Bila amavet lanetzach. Death will cease to exist. There will be no need for death. But it does say, another prophecy says that a child will die at the age of 100. What does that mean? It means that some people will still continue to die, but they will die at a very, very old age. And they, it will be like a child, 100 years old. Oh, he died so young. But for the most part, those who come back to life will not die again. This is all, of course, happening very, very soon. Why? Because so many years have already passed by, and we're getting closer to the year 6000, and we still have so many things that need to happen, like the building of the Bet HaMikdash, Tchiyat HaMetim, and eventually Olam Haba. This Olam Haba is, of course, something which we have no concept of exactly what it will be like, but we do know that it will be after the year 6000. As I said before, it's a little bit of a machloket when it begins, when it starts, but we don't know exactly what it will look like. It's spiritual.
Don't people have Olam Haba right now when they die? Some people.
That's the Rambam. The Rambam says that that's Olam Haba. But the Ramban says that's called Olam HaNeshamot. Real Olam Haba is after Tchiyat HaMetim. But they're all in agreement that this is a form of Olam Haba, at least. It's spiritual. So it's a form of Olam Haba. But the real Olam Haba, the future, is after the year 6000, which is after Yemot HaMashiach, the Messianic era, which is, if Mashiach comes now, we only have 229 years left of a Messianic era. Yes?
Tchiyat HaMetim is going to be for everybody, all the nations?
Yes, Tchiyat HaMetim is for everybody. The non-Jews also get up. Everybody gets up. I should say not everybody. Many get up. There is a list of people who will not get up. For some terrible sins that they committed, they don't get up at all. But most people get up, but they don't stay forever. They get up for Yom Adin Gadol V'Norah, for the Day of Judgment, after which it is decided whether they will stay or not. So there will be people who will get up, and they will have a share to the world to come who are not Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish to have Olam Haba. You don't have to be Jewish to have Tchiyat HaMetim. Right? But at that point it will be decided after they got up whether they stay or not, after the Yom Adin Gadol V'Norah. Anyway, there's a...
What will the goof be like at that point?
What is that?
Sicknesses and the like. What will the goof be like at the point when it comes back?
It will be a more spiritual type of goof. It will be a new goof, a new physical body. But at the time of Tchiyat HaMetim, till the end of the year, there will still be food and drink. No burgers and Coke and French fries. It will be healthy food. Yeah, real, nourishing food. Yes.
Well, my big question is, when this all happens, on the Day of Judgment, when they decide who will have a share in Olam Haba, who will die or not, if someone is truly a good person and serves Hashem with everything they have, would they, are they surely have a share in Olam Haba? And if not, what happens to the people who are decided they will not stay?
They go back to dirt.
What happens to their soul?
They cease to exist, right? We don't know the details of all this. All we do know is that many of them, I should say, will have a chilek Olam Haba, but not all. Olam Haba is a special world. It's an eternal world. It's intended for those who somewhat contributed, who were productive, who were good, who did something right. Obviously the evil people don't have a share to the world to come. But that will be decided at the time of Tchiyat HaMetim. So Tchiyat HaMetim, part of the process, involves the Day of Judgment. Just like to finish with an incredible story that happened, I think, in the 20s in Miron. Miron, as you know, is the burial place of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Many Jews traditionally go there.
Like Omer.
Like Ba'omer, his day of passing. There was a woman who went there with her son to do his halakha, to give him his first haircut at 3 years old. This was an incredible story about a woman who prayed at the grave to have a child. And she was, Baruch Hashem, blessed with the child. So she made a promise that she will come back, of course. And she came back, and unfortunately, the child died. At the time of the haircut, it was a tremendous tragedy. The British, who were still in control then, quarantined the whole place because they thought this must be some sort of plague, something contagious. But she refused to live. She refused to leave the place. She just left her son at the kever, at the grave, and she told Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, "You blessed me. I begged you for this child. You gave him to me, and now you took him. Please give him back to me." And she prayed, and she left him at the grave. Half an hour later, an officer heard that the child was awake and asking for water to drink. He came back. He had died completely. The reason I shared with you this story is because this is a story in our time, more or less, of Tchiyat HaMetim. And when we say Baruch Atah Hashem Mechayeh HaMetim, that you are the one that brings, we see it from time to time, that Hashem is the one that's responsible for it. He's the one that brings back, and He's the one that decides who dies and who lives. And even those who have died, He sometimes brings them back alive. This is a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. Hashem's name is sanctified when we see this kind of things.
Finding Malachim too, for Elisha.
Yeah, we talked about it before, right. Anyway, the entire world will know that Hashem is one, Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, especially when this nevuah comes about, as the pasuk says, "V'ida'atem keni Hashem b'fitchi et kivrotechem." You will know that I'm your God when I open up your graves. In other words, until then, people will be questioning, is this true? Is there a God? Of course, as we get closer to Mashiach, things will become more and more obvious. There will be more clarity. Today there's a lot of confusion, as the prophet says, a lot of darkness. And that's why people are, depressed. They don't have sense of direction, especially when they don't have a job. Things are tough. And what's next? And the wars and problems, and where's the world headed? But little by little, as the sun begins to rise, the darkness disappears, right? It becomes daylight. That is how Mashiach is compared to. The light coming into the world, and the knowledge of Hashem will be a lot stronger. But it will be the culmination of the Tchiyat HaMetim. With that the world will be finally convinced that this is true. So this is a tremendous part of our emunah, in believing in Tchiyat HaMetim, that B'ezrat Hashem, we are fortunate, hopefully, to be living in the generation that, God willing, will see it very, very soon. Amen.
Amen.
By the way, if anybody, a lot of new people here, if anybody wants to listen to